guys, and welcome to my video for day number 5 of Inktober. For today's video, I'm using the prompt that I picked in the last video, and that prompt was figure in a doorway. Now, I did take a few little liberties with this prompt, but I will discuss that more later. And for now, I want to focus on how this is another environment type piece. I also have a lot of difficulty saying that word if you cannot tell. Now, as you can see, this time, instead of focusing on a natural landscape like the cave that I did in day 3, I wanted to do a house. I have always liked drawing houses and buildings. There's just something very interesting about them. I like how precise they are. I think I've mentioned on this channel in the past that math has always been my favorite subject in school, and numbers are just something that I enjoy. And for a while, I actually thought that I wanted to be a structural engineer as my career path, which is essentially just a word for an architect that works on buildings and bridges that are supposed to support a lot of weight. So overall, buildings are just very intriguing to me, and so when I get the chance to draw them, I like to take that opportunity. This particular house is a Victorian style house, as I was trying to keep the themes of my other Inktober pieces in line with this one. The primary connection I made within the series with this particular piece was a connection between this one and day 2. For those of you that did not see my day 2, essentially I drew a woman in a dress. The prompt was actually dress. She had a raven on her shoulder, and there was a tree to the side of her, and the dress she was wearing was a very Victorian style dress. So in this regard, both the Victorian style elements of her outfit as well as the tree both make an appearance in this piece. However, with that being said, I think the two pieces are still very distinct and aren't very similar in any way. I was simply trying to make connections for my own amusement and hopefully the enjoyment of others as well. I didn't actually add any birds this time around, even though that is a theme that I have been using quite a bit. But as I mentioned near the beginning of this video, I did kind of play with the prompt a little bit to give the piece a vibe that is more Halloween-like. I mentioned this in my last video. I tend to like things that are a little darker or creepier, and the eyes, instead of a full figure in the doorway, gave me that vibe I was looking for. The eyes were also slightly inspired by a couple of elements from my Halloween collection. For those of you that are joining me for Inktober and were not around before that, I recently released a mixed media Halloween downloads collection over on my Etsy shop. And in that collection, there are a couple of different elements, one a little ghost and one a black cat, which are simply silhouettes that have their eyes completely white, like the eyes in this doorway. And overall, I just really liked those designs, so I wanted to kind of expand on it and play with that concept a little bit more. Basically, I'm taking inspiration from myself, but I do think that there's something interesting about that because it can make your work feel more cohesive as a whole. So even though this illustration is done completely in ink and is very different from my mixed media collection, they both still very much feel like they were created by the same person, which I like. Kind of going off of that concept of previous videos on this channel, since I've been so busy with a bunch of projects, primarily Inktober, I haven't really had a lot of time for art journal type art, let alone videos. I'm currently in the process of trying to make Halloween journals to put up in my shop, and though they are in progress, we'll see when I can get them finished by. I would like to do them within the week, but I'm not sure how my actual time is going to work out in that regard. Another thing I would really like to do, if I could somehow wrangle the time to do so, is put together some non-Inktober related videos. I know not everyone who has subscribed to this channel is necessarily interested in Inktober. That's not what they were here for. And so I would still like to release content that those people, and hopefully the new people, would be interested in as well. But the primary problem is the time issue. Making videos takes a long time, especially when you're dealing with a computer that doesn't want to work with you. So I will do my best to get at least a couple of unrelated to Inktober videos out, but we'll see how that goes. So with those kind of channel updates out of the way, I want to look at today's piece again in a bit more depth. I was trying out some different techniques with this piece, some different effects, and the primary thing I was trying to achieve was something that was more blended, specifically something that sort of faded out as it got closer to the bottom of the page. I kind of had this idea in my mind of what I wanted it to look like, but it was very different from anything I had ever tried to do before. And as such, it didn't turn out quite as expected, not exactly the way I had seen it in my brain. It was a bit more splotchy than I had initially intended, but to a certain extent I was expecting that, since I had never tried the technique before. I didn't really expect to be able to pull it off perfectly my first go, but I'm glad that I took the steps to attempt it anyways. I might go back in and make the house itself just a bit darker after the fact, since the contrast doesn't feel quite right to me. It feels really close, but it feels slightly too blended. So if I just added a light ink wash over the house, I think it would make it pop a bit more. And really a lot of those issues came from my overworking the sky. I wanted to make the sky darker when initially I had intended for it to be light. So because I started making the sky darker, it kind of blended into the house, and basically my own good intentions kind of got the better of me. But I don't hate it. I like the way it looks. I think that the concept is fun and the composition is enjoyable to me. However, I have mentioned contrast in this Inktober series in the past, and even though I've been thinking about it, it probably wouldn't hurt to do a few little thumbnails just to really nail it down. So I will probably end up doing that with my next piece, sort of printing out the sketch in smaller sizes and then kind of taking maybe some grayscale markers or something and trying to lay out the tones. Now overall, I am still kind of trying to get into the overall swing of Inktober. I've been working very long days, sometimes as long as 12 or 13 hours, just trying to get everything I have on my plate done in the time I have. So I'm hoping that before the month is up, I will figure out how to make everything run more smoothly. Especially because there are some things, specifically like planning for NaNoWriMo, that I haven't even really had time to touch on. And I don't particularly want to go into writing 50,000 words in a month without any sort of plan. Some people can do that, but I am not one of those people. However, with all that being said, I am proud of what I've been able to accomplish thus far, and I hope you all are enjoying it too, because it is very much for all of you. So without further ado, thank you for watching the time-lapse portion of the video, and I'm going to transition us into the last part where I'm picking tomorrow's prompt. So here is the finished piece for day number 5 of Inktober. And for those of you interested, this is one of the little elements from my Halloween collection that it was inspired by. Of course, this one is a bit more fleshed out as an overall concept, but I really like the similarities. So let's move this out of the way and pick the prompt for tomorrow. Here's our hat, and let's go. this one hopped out, so I guess we'll do this one. And the prompt is dark forest. Interesting. I kind of have an idea for this that might be somewhat similar / in line with the illustration from today. I guess we'll see what I can do. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this time-lapse video and my discussion of it. Be sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with my Inktober project. And I will see you guys tomorrow with the illustration for this prompt.